What's up guys, and welcome back to another video from me again today. Today I'm going to try and go over a few things in more detail than I normally do, tuning wise that is. I know I'll do a lot of tunes that you guys can just build and race and they're ready to go, but hopefully I'm trying to give you a little bit better insight into how to tune the individual parts on the car yourself. Today I'm going to be covering springs. And there are a lot of tuning guides out there that tell you if your car's doing this, then you need to adjust the front or rear spring up or down. But one of the questions I get asked quite a lot is, how do you know how to or what to set your initial spring rate at? Do you set it as really stiff or really soft? And how do you know how to change it accordingly? Well, I've been doing a little bit of testing, a little bit of research before this video, and I want to try and share with you guys my insight into it, and hopefully this will help you with your tuning, and you can go away and try and implement this and try this and let me know what sort of outcomes you get of it. So today I'm in a Ferrari 355. I've tuned up to A-class, but I'm going to mess about with the spring settings. I'm going to hopefully explain to you a little bit more about what different settings do. So with the springs is all about how the weight is transferred around your car, whether it be accelerating and the weight being transferred backwards, or if you're braking heavily and all the weight being transferred forwards, and also if you're turning left or right, if the weight gets transferred to either side of the car. And the springs is what controls that, and how you set it depends on how much weight is actually transferred. The softer the spring, the less weight is actually transferred to the tyres and to the road, and the stiffer the springs, the more weight is actually transferred through the springs into the tyres and then into the road. So I'm going to try and show you a few things today. Hopefully these will help you. So we've got the telemetry up on screen now, and you can see the spring at a standstill are in the middle, and the offsets there are 50, 50, 50 and 50. So that's in the middle of the springs. Springs aren't going up, springs aren't going down, they're just settled. Those offsets, when they get to 100, or when the figure increases, that's when they're being compressed, so weight is being transferred onto them. And likewise, when it goes down, that means weight transfers not going onto them. So if you show you now from a standing start, and if you accelerate, you should see the rear ones go up and the front ones go down. And then when we brake, it should do vice versa. So there you can see. So you can see straight away that what the springs do when you accelerate and brake, and then vice versa. If we turn left, then the right hand springs will go up and the left hand springs will go down. And if we turn right, then the left hand springs will go up and the right hand springs will go down. So that's the basic of the spring, very, very basics. But ask ourselves, how do we know what to set the spring rates at? Well, if we have a look at the tune on this for the springs, you can see at the moment, just to emphasise the spring ratios, we've got it set very, very soft. So we've got 200 pounds front and rear. And what we'll do is we'll have a quick drive round, and what you'll find, and we'll just accelerate, and you can see and watch the spring ratios and how they move about. So you can see we're turning left and the right springs are all the way to the top. And one thing I have noticed as well that it doesn't do in this compared to Forza 4 is when you hit the max spring travel, whether it be up or down, it doesn't go red, it doesn't flash red anymore. So that's one thing to look out, and that in conjunction with not being able to watch your replays is a bit of a nightmare when you're trying to watch telemetry back in slow motion. It's so you kind of have to do it on the fly and try and make the best of it you can. So just going to have a steady lap round, and you can see as we go over different types of terrain, and whether it's going up, down, left or right, how the spring ratios actually react. So we're braking and the weight's going forward, and now we're turning left, and you can see all the weights going to the right, to the point where the springs have actually hit the maximum travel, and we actually slide out there. Just change down a few gears, turn right, and the springs on the left go up. So yeah, when the spring rate is very low, when you're turning, the car actually doesn't feel that responsive, and it feels kind of sluggish. And what it will finally do is it'll wallow back into. So when I'm turning left, for instance, it'll kind of wallow and wobble a little bit as the suspension settles, and that's what you want to try and get away from. So we'll just take this right hand corner now. Yeah, you can see we're actually bottoming out there because the suspension is that low. Normally you wouldn't set a car suspension this low anyway, but this is just to show you guys the extremes of what the suspension does. And while the car's actually getting around the corner, it could be a hell of a lot better. So we'll just take this corner and we'll get onto the straight and we'll stop. Right, so we'll just pull up here and see the suspension moving forward again as we brake, and it settles back down to the middle. So what we'll do now is we'll go to the other option. So this is usually the best way, guys. If you want to know what something does and how it affects your car, is just go from one extreme to the other and then just note the differences. So we've gone from 200 to the max, and we'll go up right up to the top, not all the way, but we'll just go pretty high up. Yeah, so we've got the suspension even. So as we accelerate now, you should see that movement in the suspension that we saw before when we accelerated to be a lot less, because the springs actually holding that weight a lot more. So it would help if I was in first gear. Try again. Over a few bumps there, and you can see the amount that the white bar is actually moving is very little, because the spring's a lot stiffer now, so it's not actually compressing as much. And you can see when we go around this right hand corner, the white bars are not going all the way to the top as they were before. They're staying in the middle, and actually the car feels a lot more responsive just to in and out. So that's one thing to think of as well. So if the car's feeling sluggish and slow to react, then it could, one of the possible things could be that the fact that your spring setting's too low, and if you want to increase the responsiveness, then just increase the spring ratio or the spring strength, and that should make your car a little bit more responsive for you. So you might be asking, well, why don't we just have super stiff springs all the time? Because the car's more responsive, we don't bottom the suspension out. And what it'll do is it'll transfer a lot more weight to the springs into tyres through the road, and you'll actually just end up ploughing on forwards, and you'll actually your tyres will actually lose traction with the road altogether, and you'll find you'll just go straight on into corners, or it'll feel like you're understeering. I don't know what it is. It'll just go a little bit wide there because car's actually losing traction with the road. So yeah, so they're the two differences. You can see that the springs aren't maxing out anywhere near as much as they were before as we go around the corners, but we are losing traction with the road a little bit, and that's causing us to slide, or the whole car in general is to slide. So we'll just pull up on this hill here, just get on the flat bit, put it in first, ready for the next bit. So when you look at setting your springs up, what I've noticed is you want to look at the weight distribution of the car as well. Weight distribution of the car is very important because you want stiffer springs on where more weight is. Now this car is all middle or rear engine drive, we'll class it as middle, so we're going to want to put more weight on the springs to the rear. So we'll have the rear spring rate set a lot higher than we'll have it set higher than the front spring rate. And also with the, we'll just back out of this, I'll just show you the telemetry again. When we saw it before with the telemetry, we've got the springs super stiff, they weren't going up to the top, and the offset was probably getting to about 60 at the most, front and rear. What I try and do is to get as much spring travel as I can without the car A losing traction with the road, or B maxing the spring level out so it just goes all wide and you know you've gone too far. The figure I try and aim for is about 85. Now this is the difficult bit because you've got to try and do this while you're driving and you can't watch it back in the replay and you can't slow it down, so this is kind of you have to try and get a feel for it. So at the moment with the springs super stiff, we know that the bars aren't moving at all, or they're not moving a great amount. So what we're going to do to make the bars move, we're actually going to lower the suspension level, or lower the spring level, and we're on 116, so we'll take it down 200 and we'll take it to 916 front and rear. Just adjust these, so we'll go 916 on the front. And even though I said all the weights on the rear, or a lot of the weights on the rear, we're going to leave it equal in a minute because I'm going to cover that bit in a moment. So there you go, 916 front, 916 rear. And we'll have a look as we drive round at the at the offsets, and we want to try and get them up to around 85% at the most. As we corner, so we can see here, rear's at about 70, 80, 90, and front at about 60, 70. So that's very important to remember, is that the rear was at about 80 or 90 and the spring was at 60 and 70. And what you want to try and do is you want to try and even those numbers out as much as possible as we're cornering. I'll try and show you as well. So we've got 50, 70. So the rear is still a little bit higher than the front when we're turning. So these are the offsets, the 4 lots of numbers on the outer edge of the screen. So 60, 70, you see 80, 90 for the rear as we go around that left-hander. So as to do with the weight distribution in your car, that's where you want to try and balance it out. So to raise that figure for the offset, we lower the spring ratio. So we know, go back onto springs. So if you want to raise that figure, we know we have to lower the spring ratio. So we lower the front to try and raise it up a little bit. And the front was getting into the 90, or the rear was getting into the 90, so we'll try and increase that a little bit, just to try and stop, to keep it around in the 80s somewhere. So you can see now we've got most, even just looking at those offset figures, you can see now we've also matched it to the weight distribution of the car, so more weights at the rear, so hence the rear springs are a little bit stiffer. So we'll continue driving around, and hopefully we can see while we're driving that those figures should try and even themselves out a little bit. The thing you have to pay attention to as well is if you're accelerating around the corner, you've also got the weight being transferred to the rear because you are accelerating, and likewise if you're braking around the corner, you'll have the weight transferred to the front. So take that into consideration when you're looking at those figures. I mean, if you look now with nothing, they seem pretty even. And we'll just check on this right hander as well. So according to this, don't brake, accelerate, let off the throttle, turn in 50, 60, so the front's a little higher on that one. And we'll try on this left hander with the other side. So 70, 80, 60, 70. So what we can do is now we need to lower the rear one slightly, or maybe raise the front one, sorry, because they're in 60 to 70. So we'll increase those just a touch. I mean, you don't have to do nothing mathematically, just adjust it a little bit. We'll raise that, so that should hopefully, no, I've done that wrong way around. Yeah, so we want to raise the front ones, don't we? So we lower the value there a little bit more from what it was, and that will raise the offset value. I'll try and get to a corner and we'll have a look how the car handles. Next one we should be able to see is the long right hander, the final corner. And what you'll find while you're doing this is you'll probably find that if you look at this and with the offsets and get them to around that 85% mark, that the car does actually feel quite balanced. So you can see there on the right hand side, they're not a million miles away from each other now. I wasn't watching them where I was going, but yeah, they seem quite balanced. We'll check on this one again. Hopefully we won't nudge the wall this time. So as we're accelerating, we expect the rear to be a little bit higher because we're getting weight transferred to the right and the rear at the same time. So yeah, I mean, and just driving the car as well, just with those brake settings, those spring settings, it does feel fairly balanced. I mean, I'm not pushing it because I'm trying to watch the figures as well at the same time. So there you can tune it from there. So yeah, if you need to increase the offset for the springs, then we lower the value, and if you want to raise it, no, if you want to lower the offset value, right, start again. Trying to confuse myself. Right, so if you want to raise the offset value, lower the springs, and if you want to lower the offset value, then raise the springs. So I hope on the third or fourth attempt I've made that easy to understand for you. And that way you can try and balance the weight distribution out of your car, and you can also see what initial spring rate to set at the same time. That's the way I've kind of found it easiest to do with the telemetry that we've got in Forza. Try not to see how much in mid-corner is more anti-roll bars, which I'll try and cover in the next one. And that's why you can balance anti-roll bars with the springs to try and get them work in conjunction with each other. So you don't get understeer in the corners in mid-corner, or oversteer mid-corner. So yeah, what the number I try and aim for on the offset is around the 80 mark. If it's a little bit lower, a little bit higher, you can tweak it and try and get it up to there. But the difficult part is actually driving around and trying to watch what those values are, so you know what to adjust accordingly. I mean, we could probably lower the suspension, lower the spring ratio a little bit more on this, because we're only hitting the 60s, 70s. If we want to get in that 80 mark, we can bring both them figures down. And as long as you're not maxing the suspension out either travel all the way to the top. I mean, you can see the front right there, the front right was getting quite high, and it is again. Yeah, I mean, we can, yeah, front, so maybe we need to stiffen it a little bit more. But yeah, just pay attention to some offsets. Use maybe the 80 figure mark as a target, and then whatever track you're on, just keep an eye on the white bars. If you see it going all the way up there, see as it did then we need to adjust it a little bit more to stop it from doing that. So we'll need to stiffen the bars to stop it from going all the way to the top. And likewise, if it goes all the way to the bottom, you need to soften them. So that's just a quick overview of how to set your initial spring rates and how you can maybe work them out. I hope I've made it easy to understand. I know I had to correct myself a few times. Yeah, I hope it made it easy for you guys to understand, and you can take it away and try and have a look at that and see how you can apply it to your tuning, see how you get on, and see if it makes a difference to how you initially set. Springs are usually one of the first things that I do, just to get the balance of the car and the weight distribution of the car set up nicely, and then everything else can kind of work around the springs, and you can tweak them as you need to. So yeah, the car I'm using for this is the Ferrari 355. Feel free to use the same car and see if you can get the same sort of figures, or try one of your own. Maybe a car that you're struggling with getting the springs set up, and give that a go and see how you get on. Right then guys, so I'll leave that here. Try not to make the video too long for you. If you've got any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below, and I'll make sure I can try and either A, cover them in the next video, do a quick recap, or B, comment directly back to you so everybody can see the answer. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys. I hope you found it helpful. As always, if you have, just hit the like button, or leave me a comment, or do the awesome things you can do on my channel. And until next time, I'll see you all soon.